Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. However, before we kick off this brawl in the Chaos Wastes, I did want to take a moment just to thank each and every one of you for all the support you've provided the channel as we finally break the 1,000 subscriber mark. A point I was really not sure and not expecting to ever really reach with the channel, but it's here, and I've got you guys to thank for it, and I really do appreciate all of you, those of you who have been here from the very beginning, those of you who are more recent subscribers in addition to the channel, all of you have helped make this channel what it is. I appreciate all of your guys' kind words, wonderful input and advice and thoughts and opinions that you all post down in the comments below. And it's always great to hear from you guys. And I know we've got a little bit of a community growing here. And there are a few more announcements in regards to that. I will hopefully be putting a video up for in the near future. Unfortunately, have been a bit busy and a bit under the weather recently, and that has made sort of getting things organized in regards to YouTube a little bit difficult. But I did want to say that I realized we had 1,000, and I very much appreciate each and every one of you and all the support you've provided me with over the years. So thank you all very much. And without further ado, let us dive in. For here on the Chaos Wastes, we are going to be standing here with the forces of the High Elves against the forces of the Mighty Empire. And for the build here, I wanted to try something a little different and go for something a little kitier and a little bit light on the infantry line, as you can see. For my Lord, I'm going to be rocking a Lithinar. I think he is a solid choice in this matchup. Can really snipe off elite cavalry models, good against demigriffs, good against enemy artillery, which is always a concern with Empire, and not too terrible at picking off enemy lords, heroes, characters, that sort of thing. So we got a Lithinar. He doesn't have too much fancy on him. He's just got the wonderful Moonbow as well as Slippery, just to escape a little better. Passable combatant in close quarters, though. Certainly it's not where you want him in life. And he is supported here by a whole lineup of Shadow Warriors. We've got Vanilla Shadow Warriors as well as the Gray, ready to pounce on any enemy artillery we might see, and disappointment and sadness as my opponent didn't actually bring any artillery in this matchup, so we got no victims to snipe. Elsewhere in reserve, we do have some Illyrian Reavers ready to support those Vanguard forces if my opponent had any units ready to pounce on them. Behind that, a tiny front line, just 2 Spearmen just there to sort of screen and provide support for the front line. 2 Sisters of Avalorn to pour on some AP missile fire, and I figured it's good to have essentially a reserve Sister of Avalorn for one of them who does get shut down or knocked out for good. A Mage of Rust, or really Mage of Metal with Plague of Rust, as well as the Final Transmutation, there to help knock off key targets. Empire Heavy Cav, of course, very, very beefy. Does have that 110 armor on the Knights, 125 on the Demigriffs. You want to be able to shut that down. And then we do have some Silver Helms with shields making up the back line here and providing a little bit of staying power. Now, for my opponent, he has gone with a relatively wide and aggressive build. We've got a whole bunch of swordsmen in the front line with Sigmar Sons anchoring things in the middle. Always a solid choice against High Elves because swordsmen will outtrade spearmen, which are the most common frontline unit, and they will stall units like Rangers and White Lions. Okay, they're certainly not going to win, but they will buy you a little bit of time and do some damage in return. We also do have a single unit of spearmen with shields here in the center. The Warrior Priest trudging along on foot, so interesting choice. You don't see him all that often, but honestly, he's not terrible. He does provide some hefty melee buffs. A Shield of Faith, of course. Soulfire can wipe out an infantry unit quickly, and Hammer Sigmar can help these swordsmen fight a little more efficiently. Gray Wizard here with Enfeebling Foe as well as Penumbral Pendulum. Definitely going to have to watch out for those Penumbral Pendulums nuking perhaps my Spear line because there isn't much of a front line here at all, or perhaps Sisters of Avalorn, very, very vulnerable there. Fortunately, not many elite units, so honestly, I'm not too concerned about Enfeebling Foe having a huge impact, but it could help fold a point on my line rather quickly. 2 units of handguns, including Silver Bullets, are making up a small rear guard here, ready to shoot back at any missile units I might have positioned. Demigriff Knights are already taking fire from the very angry Lithinar, and Edgelord McEdgyface is doing quite a number on him. Demigriff Knights are the ideal target for him. Some Empire Knights in amongst them as well, as 3 units of them in total. So not the heaviest of cavalry compositions, but certainly a presence that I have to respect and be wary of. As you can see, Shadow Warriors do unleash a volley into the handgunners, looking to whittle down and rout off that key Empire missile unit. But of course, Carl as well as the Empire Knights are looking to close the gap, and you can see a volley there from the Silver Bullets whittles down the Shadow Warriors almost immediately in return. Carl coming fully kitted out, but with no Lore of Lifecaster, I think it's a little bit of an odd choice. Certainly not what I would recommend. I think it would be better off if you're not going to bring a Lifecaster, bring Boris. It's probably a safer choice. Shadow Warriors in the meantime are going to start chipping away at the Swordsmen because I turned off their fire at will, or turned on their fire at will. And you can see they're trying to pick off, just do a bit of damage as my opponent closes into melee. Though unfortunately, big mistake here, letting my Sisters of Avalorn get cleaved through by Penumbral Pendulum. Massive, massive misplay there, just scything through the ground, leaving that terrible furrow there. And yeah, the ladies were sent flying. Very, very unfun. Handguns, though, routing immediately from the field under sustained fire there. Empire Knights here get caught out by the Silver Helms and take some losses. And of course, any losses when damage my opponent takes, he's not able to heal from. So big amounts of damage being poured in here. Silver Helms are getting engaged upon. But as you can see, as the Leader Maneuvers maneuver into position, my opponent is counterattacking with Demigryph Knights. And I'm not getting shots in with Elithanar. He's disengaged, and I'm not actually pouring fire onto him. So they're still on 20 models, holding rather well. Swordsmen here getting into the fight with the Leader Reavers. Big, big micro slip up there, letting my Leader Reavers get caught. And those poor light cavalrymen are not going to have, or light cavalry elves are not going to have a good time. Sisters of Avalorn, though, pouring on the fire. Silver Bullets getting mulched into oblivion as the Silver Helms look for an opening here on the Empire Knights. Now, perhaps I should have probably swung inward here and looked to ping-pong in amongst these missile units, but I did not. The Leader Reavers, in the meantime, are going to jump in on the Swordsmen, using their solid melee stats to do some hurt as the Grey retreats from the very angry Sons of Sigmar. In the meantime, Mage of Metal is going to leap upon her opponent here, the Grey Wizard. Now, she does have martial prowess, so in a straight-up fight, she will do rather well against him, though he counteracts with enfeebling foe. So, duel of the mages down here in the pits. The Mage of Metal getting debuffed with an enfeebling foe, like the Grey Wizard to have a edge there. As over here in the pits, we did nuke this formation with a wonderful final transmutation. So you can see the Demigryphs there in dreadful shape, taking more and more fire there, losing models. The Moonbow there plows in through the formation. Empire Knights there very, very badly bloodied. So this entire unit is pretty much wiped out, but my opponent is not going to be able to rout me off, and that is a big, big problem. My Mage of Metal here fleeing for dear life as Elithanar pours on the fire. Sisters of Avalorn, though, do take position, and they are going to start unloading with those last cannons of theirs and turning poor Karl Franz into mulch. And at this short range, they aren't missing very much. Now, granted, he has 100 armor and some missile resist, of course, being a lord, but he is definitely taking a pounding. Does knock off a few of them there with his charge, but taking quite a bit of fire. Now, unfortunately, with his somewhat erratic animations, we're actually getting quite a lot of misses there, which is unfortunate. And we take another hit from a Penumbral Pendulum. The Leader Reavers diving in courageously, taking the blow there for the cause, and looking to snipe out the Grey Wizard. Grey Wizard here in full flight, but Leader Reavers are faster. Empire Casters do not have that much speed, and so although he did have the passive from Shadows going, he's now down to 78 speed. Gonna get caught and gonna get pounded. Elsewhere, as you can see, the Silver Helms here, who should have won this fight against Empire Knights, normally they would have, do get focused down by the handguns, and they're going to be routed from the field. So big, big misplay there on my part. I really should have focused on the guns than the Empire Knights, but kind of wasted opportunity there. In the meantime, though, Karl here being zoned out and shot to death, as well as the Grey Wizard just getting pounded into oblivion by some focus fire. Elithanar here still hasn't fired that much. I left fire at will off, and that was a big misplay. I really should have just let him keep firing at whatever units he wanted to. Empire Knights, though, getting focus fire now as they get their monstrous charge in there on the Leader Reavers. You can see this absolute bloodbath going down as we take tit-for-tat blows, massive losses on all sides. Sister of Avalorn here getting overrun by Knights, but fortunately they're just so low models at this point that we are actually able to hold them okay in melee, and it's just a bloody, bloody brawl to the finish. Knights here trying to fight the Mage of Metal. She is holding her own all right, though certainly not amazingly well. You can see Shield of Faith here helping keep the Knights in the fray. Now, one of the big problems here, Warrior Priest doesn't have Benediction, and in a situation like this, it could be the difference maker if he had Benediction. That said, over here, Karl Franz is going to dive in on my Mage of Metal and rout her off, so you can see she's in full flight. Actually, she rallies. I thought she routed there, but no. She does hold against the Terror, so big win there for the Elves. As over here, the Sisters of Avalorn, 49 models, and of course, with respectable, though certainly not amazing combat stats, they will hold their own here. The Demigryph Knights have worse combat stats, and they obviously, right now, they're pretty monstrous with Reikland Runefang, but normally, they've got lower melee stats than that. And so the Sisters are able to whittle them down in melee, and Elithanar is able to disengage and start pounding away. Unfortunately, over here, Spear's getting in on these ladies, and yeah, Sisters kind of falling apart. as the Shadow Warriors try to reposition and fire back on those handguns. And at this point, the battle very much hinges in the balance. You can see balance of power is slightly in my favor, probably because of these spears out on the periphery. Carl over here very, very low, and we actually slam him with a Moonbow, so knocking him down to 400 or so HP, looking to get those finishing shots with a Lithanar. But at the same time, well, the Grey are whittling down the Sigmar Suns here, but right now, if I cannot remove these guns, my opponent could still easily win this battle, because over here, these spears will get overwhelmed. These knights will come back in, and then it's really just going to be a Lithanar and a handful of sisters against the guns, and really the guns could actually provide enough overwhelming firepower here to overpower the 2 missile units. So it is a very, very risky proposition right now. We do try to rout off Carl there. I'm actually trying to force a Lithanar right now to focus him. As the sisters start unloading, I just have them hold their ground, try to unload on the handguns and rout them off the field. Lithanar here taking aim and firing that bow of his, that bolt thrower, and smashing Karl Franz in the rear again, dropping him down to 185 HP, looking to rout him off for good. Silver bullets here, pouring on fire onto the Sisters of Avalorn, so obviously good prioritization there from my opponent, recognizing what the biggest threat is. But now we're going to start being able to pour on the fire from our sisters. And the nice thing is the sisters do fire faster than the handguns. I believe even faster than silver bullets do. Though perhaps I'm wrong on that account. If we check here for the silver bullet stats, we can see they've got 9.1 seconds. So maybe they don't fire faster. They do. Let's see. Oh no, they do still fire faster. Over here, Warrior Priest did try to get in on a Lithanar, but does take a few shots at point blank range. And now the last charge of the Empire Knights here, 19 models trying to get in range, but with Karl Franz gone, their leadership is somewhat in the gutter. They take a shot there from a Lithanar, which of course does inflict the artillery leadership penalty, and they will run from the field. And that is going to be all she wrote for the Empire. Though certainly a very tight game and a Pyrrhic victory. Now, certainly there were misplays galore on both sides. My opponent getting a massive clump that allowed me to get a beautiful final transmutation early that actually we missed out on, but nuking the Demigryph Knights and 2 Empire Knights, as well as Karl Franz, was pretty monstrous. I think really the biggest mistake on my opponent's part, though, was the choice of Karl Franz with a Shadowcaster. I think if you're going to go for a Shadowcaster, don't bring Karl Franz. Karl Franz, you don't want him. Bring either Volkmar or bring a Lore of Lifecaster with Karl, or bring Boris Todbringer if you still want that solid combat prowess, but you don't want to be, but you don't want to bring Lore of Life. I think just all in all, that it was a poor choice to go with the Grey Wizard and Karl. And I think definitely the fact that there was no Lifecaster in the long run. Now, granted, keep in mind, the Grey Wizard nuked the Sister of Avalorn, which if it was a Lifecaster, you wouldn't have been able to do that. The Sister would have essentially gone that entire game unpressured, not giving a crap, and just pouring on fire. Which could have been impactful. That could have shaken things up. That could have swung the tide the opposite way. But at the same time, the fact that Karl was in fact focused down and just melted by sustained bow fire really did hurt him quite a bit. Now, for my build here, I think this would not hold very well if my opponent had gone with a very wide cavalry build. Occasionally, you'll see 6, 7 heavy cav builds from Empire, usually with Volkmar on a Pimp Wagon leading the way, and a bunch of Empire Knights and some Demigryphs thrown in the mix. Against that sort of build, this probably would not have held up very well. The sisters, of course, poured out pretty insane damage. 900, not the most amazing, but 1700, very, very respectable. Shadow Warriors didn't do the most amazing either. And just kind of struggle against the heavy armor of Empire Cav, though they did rather well against the handguns when they got that opportunity. Unfortunately, our Cav kind of got smushed, though these Leader Maneuvers did rack up 700 damage, so they actually paid for themselves in damage output, which is pretty impressive. They bounced back and forth between those state troops and helped disrupt the enemy Cav charges. Actually, also caught the Grey Wizard. Grey Wizard, 1200 damage, definitely very high value with those Penumbral Pendulums. Karl, unfortunately, didn't net that much. The Major Metal here, 1800 value with that final transmutation, just was very, very monstrous. Lithanar, also 1800, pulling down those Demigryphs and Karl. But really, I think this build here, probably not what you want to risk against Empire, but it was a fun build just to try out. I think against most Empire builds it'll hold up okay, but if your opponent goes for Cavalry Swarm, you're definitely going to be in a very, very tight spot and quite possibly just lose outright, since it's going to be very hard to defend these sisters. But regardless, well played to my opponent, Resrius here. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. As usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments, and critiques down below. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the 1,000 subs, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.